Okay, hello and good morning everyone. Welcome to JFD Traders Espresso with me, Darius Anucauskas. Today's the 30th of August 2019, so welcome everyone. Welcome to this Friday's morning session where we're going to have a quick look at the markets, a few of the charts, the usual stuff. But before we do that, as always, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. So, the content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation, should not be considered as such, and does not in any way constitute an invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. As always, a few seconds for you to read the rest, and we can continue. Okay, so now then, just a very quick mentioning of our JFD YouTube channel here, to which you can always subscribe to in order not to miss any of our upcoming videos, and of course our JFD Bank website, where you can go in and have a look at different analysis that we do on our JFD research page, and I believe you can find a lot of useful stuff here. So yep, feel free to check us out here, and hope you can find something that could interest you. Right now, let's jump into the charts. Now, the first one I'm going to touch on here is the DAX30, which so the German DAX index here. So looking at this picture here, and you can see that I've removed all the lines just to kind of not to confuse ourselves, and basically looking at this 4-hour chart, you can see somewhat of an inverse head and shoulders formation here on the 4-hour chart. So in a way, this could play out nicely. Now, of course, we need a few confirmation breaks first. So as you can see, on yesterday, the index closed around the 11,837 zone, but what we're going to do here is we need to see a clear push above one of these key resistance areas, one of which being the 11,865 zone. A nice good pop above this could in a way lead the index a little bit higher here, and we could aim for slightly higher levels here, maybe above the 200 EMA here on the 4-hour chart. Of course, initially we will target that one. The 200 EMA is around the 11,970 zone, approximately around there. Then slightly above that, we do have the psychological 12,000 level again. So this will be an interesting one to watch. So if I'll put a few levels here very quickly, so this is going to be the next area that we're going to be keeping close eye on, and that's going to be around the 12,115 zone, which is the low of the 30th of July. So in a way, guys, for now, long story short, what you could do here is mainly focus on the 11,865. If we get a nice push above this, then yep, we will aim for the 11,000 psychological 12,000, and we'll aim initially for the 200 EMA, then the 12,000, and then the 12,035 zone, which is marked by the high of the 2nd of August. And like I said, slightly above that, we do have that 12,115 level, which also could play out nicely. So in a way, if I'll just quickly put some arrows here for our future reference, this is what we're aiming for initially. This is the barrier that we're looking at so far. So let's see how this is going to play out. Let me just quickly adjust this. There we go. So yep, keep your eyes on this one. In terms of the downside here, well, we'll take a very cautious approach and wait for a drop below this level right here near the 11,552.50 zone, approximately around there. This way we could see this one, the index, falling maybe all the way down here towards this the lowest point of August here near the 11,266. But to be honest, I mean, probably most likely that this is going to be the lowest point of August, and this drop here, probably if this index decides to drop lower, then this could happen something maybe later on, going into September or October. So keep your eyes on this one, guys. This is, like I said, in terms of the downside, keep your eyes on these two levels. It will be very interesting to see where this index can go. And for now, we've got the idea of the inverse head and shoulders formation here on the 4-hour chart, but again, we need to see a good strong close, at least of a daily candle, above this 11,865 zone. So keep your eyes on that one. Jumping into gold now very quickly. So gold continues to trade above this this tentative upside line here, taken from the low of the 30th of May. And for now, I mean, as you can see, this week the index tested the 1555 zone, roughly around there this week, and then from there kind of it slid back down, and is currently balancing just slightly above this 1525 zone. So in a way, it's we can see that it's kind of stuck here within this 30-point range here. For now, we're just going to continue observing that. We need to see a clear break, and ideally, well, if we look at this 4-hour chart, you can see that neither of the 4-hour candles managed to close below this 1525 zone. So in a way, what we could do here is, if we at least see it a nice good close, at least of a 4-hour candle below the 1525, then yep, we could consider a possible slide back down here towards the initially towards the psychological 1500 level, but then maybe towards the 1493 level, which is near the lows of the 19th of August and near the low of the 23rd of August. So keep your eyes on this one. Like I said, for now, this is what we're going to be doing here. We're going to keep an eye on these two levels, because in terms of the upside here for us, well, to be honest, we're going to wait for a clear break above the 1555 before we could examine the upside. Again, I do understand that we're kind of slightly on the lower side right now, but like I said, that's why for now we're going to be very careful. You can see that the commodity this morning already kind of reversed from the 1525 level, but it's currently getting held by today's pivot, which is around the 1532 zone, approximately around there. If it continues to hold, we could see this one reversing back down, but as I said before, we need to see that clear break below the 1525 before we could examine some lower levels. Jumping into GBPUSD in a few pairs, so we'll have a fresh start here. Of course, overall, you can see that the pair is kind of stuck within a downtrend here, and if we draw a few downside lines here, you can see that it continues to trade roughly below the downside line taken from the highest point of May. So this medium-term downside line here continues to keep the rate down. So for now, what we could do here is also examine something else here from the short-term perspective. Of course, this tentative short-term tentative upside line here, which you can see that kind of continues to play out nicely here, and you can see that the pair continues to hold above it. So for now, be very careful with this one. Keep an eye on it, because if this upside line breaks, then yep, we could see this one sliding further down. We do have a bit of data coming out from UK, but from not very significant. So that's why, guys, for now, probably for today, be very careful and keep an eye on some of the potential breakout points. So for example, for the downside, if we see a break of this upside line and we see a drop below the 1.215455 zone here, then yep, this could open the path towards slightly lower areas. Could then target areas like this one right here. Let me just to put this one on the chart. So we could aim for the 1.2063 zone, something like that. Initially, of course, we will aim for this 1.2105 zone, approximately around there, and then we'll take it from there, see what he wants to do after. But like I said, we're not gonna kind of try to over predict this one in the near term, in the medium term. But for now, like I said, keep your eyes on these levels. So in terms of the downside, we need to see initially a drop below this upside line, and ideally a drop below the 1.2155 zone before examining slightly lower levels. In terms of the upside, well, we'll take a very careful and very conservative approach here. We need to see a nice good clear break of this downside line, and ideally a push above the highest point of this week, which was near the 1.2310, and only then we will aim for higher levels, because like I said, at this point in time, as you can see, it is a bit of a tricky one, because yes, it could maybe travel above the pivot, today's pivot, and if it does, then the next stop could be around the R1. So the pivot, today's pivot, is around the 1.2195. If it gets a nice good pop above this, then we will aim for the R1, which is around the 1.2216, 15 zone. And then of course the next level, the next level to watch could be around the R2, which is around the 1.2256-55 zone. It's also near this 200 EMA here on the 4-hour chart. So that's why, guys, for now we're going to be very careful here with the upside. Yes, it continues to trade above this tentative, or I shouldn't actually call it a tentative, but a short-term upside line. But again, in the, let's say in the medium term, for us to get more excited with the upside, we would like to see a push above this downside line and a push above the 1.2310 level before examining higher levels. So for now, guys, this is the game plan. Like I said, from the very short term perspective, you could keep an eye on today's pivot, which is around the 1.2195. A nice good pop above this could lead towards the R1, which is around the 1.2215, or even actually 20 zone, even something like that here. Or even we could, if the buying is still good, then we could see this one traveling all the way towards the R2 or the 200 EMA, which is around the 1.2255. So keep your eyes on that one. Jumping into EURUSD, now this is a bit of a difficult one, because as you can see, we are still trading below this this kind of short-term downside, tentative downside resistance line taken from the high of the 24th of June, if I'm not mistaken. There we go, yep, roughly around there. So it continues to slide. It did have an attempt to push higher this week, but as you can see, it got held here perfectly by the 200 EMA here on the 4-hour chart. And now we can see that the pair is breaking below the 1.1050 area. So this of course kind of creates this more of a bearish indication here, more bearish kind of scenario. The only thing is that for us to get more excited with the downside, ideally we would like to see a drop below the 1.1024-25 zone here. Let's round it up towards the 25. If we see a nice good strong drop below the 1.1025, this could lead the pair towards further declines. I mean, it could we could of course test the psychological 110 zone, and we could then drop below the 1.10 zone, and could test maybe the area around the 1.0985 zone, and that area acted as a good intraday swing low, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just quickly drag this one back into history. Basically, this is what we're looking here for, and let me just zoom in here. I do apologize, guys, this is a little bit of an interesting one. So this is what I'm talking about. This is that level that I was talking about, the intraday swing of the 5th of May 2017. So and that's roughly around, let me just double check this very quickly, that's roughly around the 1.0965 zone. So so keep your eyes on that one. Is that correct? Is it the 50? No, that's going to be around the 1.0950 zone. So good potential target here. Keep an eye on that one, but only we'll consider that only if we see a drop below the 1.1025 zone. So keep your eyes on this one. In terms of the upside here, well, again, it's a difficult one, but what you could do here is, if we see a push above the pivot, today's pivot, which is around the 1.1065 zone, and a push above the 1.1072, then yep, we could see maybe a bit of a correction here, a larger correction to the upside, but we will only aim for this downside line initially, because if it holds, we could see another leg of selling here. So that's why, guys, with the upside, it's very difficult. But again, like I said, from the short-term perspective, this is how you could play it out. And like I said, keep your eyes on some of these levels, and on the upside, keep your eyes on the 1.1072. So let's see how this is going to play out. EURGBP, this leads us into EURGBP. So I've looked at this one previously, and basically I talked about this tentative upside line taken from the low of May this year. So this medium term upside support line, a bit of a, again, like I said, a bit of a tentative. Initially did play out nicely, but then this week it got broken, and you can see that the kind of the pair traveled back above it. So what we will do here is we're going to get rid of this upside line because it got violated, and now what we're going to mainly focus on it will be the key support and resistance level. So in a way, if we see a drop below the 0.9015 level here, which is the lowest point of this week, then this is where it could become a little bit more interesting for the sellers, as more of them could start joining in and potentially driving this one to the downside. And we will aim for the 0.8951 zone initially, or even going further down towards the low of July. Is that, let me just quickly double check that if I'm not lying here. So the lowest point of July could be, which is near the 0.8890, could be a nice target as well. But again, like I said, we need to see a clear break below this level right here, which is around the 0.9015. In terms of the upside here, ideally we would like to see a push back above the 0.9160, but the only thing is that could be a little bit of a wait here. So what you could do here is, from the short-term perspective, keep an eye on the 0.9095 zone, approximately around there. This way the pair would also get placed above its 200 EMA on the 4-hour chart, and there could be a chance to see maybe a nice push towards this 0.9160 that I just mentioned, and then we'll take it from there, see what it wants to do after. And let me just quickly put this highlighted area here, and like I said, this is what we're going to be aiming for the upside. USDJPY, very quickly on this one. So of course, overall it's still within a downtrend, but recently you can see it started ranging, and it's currently kind of stuck roughly between these two levels. So on the downside is the 105 zone, and on the upside is roughly around here. And let me just quickly push this one here. So roughly around the 106.7780 zone, so approximately around there. So guys, what you could do, again, like, wait for that confirmation break. So if we see a nice good push above the 106 point, and well, actually let's round it up a little bit towards the 80 zone, so 106.80, a nice good push above this would also place the pair above its 200 EMA on the 4-hour chart, and we could then maybe aim for slightly higher levels, initially maybe aiming for this one right here near the 107.18 mark by the low of the 18th of July, or even going a little bit further. But again, we're going to be very careful here. We could see maybe an increase in the yen buying later on, but if the risk sentiment changes to the more kind of to the downside, and then yep, we could see this one dropping again. So that's why for now I'll be very careful. If you want to aim for higher levels, wait for a clear break above the 106.80, but even then, at that point, still we're not gonna kind of go too much higher. We will only target some of these other key resistance levels like the 107.75, and then we'll take it from there. In terms of the downside here, given that we have the pair has distanced itself from the 105 level, in a way what we could do here is examine some of these other potential short-term kind of breakout points here where you could aim for a little bit lower level. So if we see a drop below the 106.23 zone 20 area, then we could in a way target the other potential area of support at 105.5455 zone. So keep your eyes on this one. So in a way, if I'm going to put a few arrows here, this is where we're going to be aiming for. So in a way, in terms of the downside, we need to see a drop below the 106.2320 level, and in terms of the downside or the upside, we need to see a push above the 106.80 before examining higher levels. And the last pair for this session is going to be USDCAD. Very relevant, of course. Today we do have the Canadian GDP figures coming out today, so keep your eyes on this one. Again, the pair is also stuck within this nice little range here, roughly between the 1.3345 on the upside and the let me just quickly put this one here on the chart, and roughly above the 1.32 zone. So in a way, of course, it's currently closer to the upside, to the upper side of the range, but we need to see a clear break above this 1.3345 before we could aim for higher levels, and before aiming kind of for this level right here near the 1.3432 33 zone, because like I said, for now this is the key barrier that we're keeping close eye on before aiming for higher levels. And in terms of the downside here, from the short-term perspective, you could keep an eye on this one right here near the 1.326870 zone. A nice good drop below this could in a way open the path towards this little level right here near the 1.322120 zone, and we'll take it from there, see what he wants to do after. But as I said, for now we're going to be very careful here. We're going to keep an eye on these two levels. So like I said, on the downside, the 1.3268, a drop below this could lead the pair a little bit lower here. We're not going to drag it too much to the downside, but one of the good targets could be around the 1.32, and on the upside the 1.3345. This is what we are waiting for in order to examine higher levels. Okay guys, I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for sticking around and watching until the end. If you want to join me later on at my traders tea time, as always, that's 13:15 GMT. For now, I hope you have a beautiful trading day, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.